Welcome back to Spaulding Feature. Here we have Christene Bell, and we went into some of her history as a nurse and the trauma associated with it, PTSD, and as a result of doing her job and getting hurt in the process. And in that process also, she didn't feel understood or respected, or I don't put words in your mouth, but respected by her employer. I'd love to just pick up where we left off and then go into the next level. That's just unbelievable. Go ahead. So you would have thought your employer would have understood and had given you what was required to heal, but that didn't seem to be the case?
No. So after, the initial episode, I like to refer to it as an episode. It makes me feel a little bit better than breakdown. Right away, the first email that I received from management, again, with the reprimanding, accusing me of things. For example, I knew a nurse had to go in after me to the same location where I was attacked. And so I had requested an escort for them to management to make sure that this other nurse was safe as well. So in this email that I received from management the following day, because unfortunately nobody else wanted to go there, surprise. And so management had to go escort this nurse, was specifically that I used my authority and leadership inappropriately by requesting an escort for this next nurse. So to make sure that my coworker was safe diving into transient populations.
Escort is in a security guard?
No. So when we request an escort, because the organization and the law, but the organization has a policy indicating that if you perceive to be unsafe, you can request a buddy system. So that's another staff member to come along with you. In instances of these buddy systems, the escort or the buddy, their cute word is buddy, is they are to wait for you outside. You are to be together, go into the environment together, exit together. So it's a full escort.
Another nurse,
or another staff. It can be any staff member, but it's to be two staff members.
So it's not as a qualified security member, somebody
that it should be.
Conflict resolution or anything of that sort.
That's right. Yeah, and this was one of my other arguments. So, when they, that's one of the things that set me off, was because I was already feeling so unsafe. And I was feeling, not just from the attack, which also brought out all of the previous attacks and sexual assaults that I had had, but knowing that these people who are supposed to stand there and support me and provide me with safe access while I'm alone so I can care for these patients, they were nowhere. They were nowhere for me. And not only were they nowhere for me, but they told me, reinforced, that they will not be there for me. And one of the other things that, they really pushed in the beginning before they disappeared, while I was not able to exit my house, was, they said that specific management had a lot of mental health and crisis training. But we aren't provided with mental health and crisis training. And, under our College of Nurses, if you're not competent to provide care, you don't. And in order to be competent, you have to receive that training. So why are we going into situations where we might need to respond with crisis response management and deal with unstable, untreated mental health situations where we haven't been provided that education? And so I fought back with regards to that too. I actually created and submitted an entire proposal. I tried to be as positive as I possibly could in the beginning, despite the fact that they weren't there for me and they continued to make me feel unsafe. I designed a proposal and a policy to show them how we could do better, how we could be better, how we could be safe and provide the best care for our patients, and bring in additional organizations that are there to support us. Because when we're dealing with humans, you're not a box that I'm putting together. You're somebody who has an illness and you deserve the best care from all sides. So why not do that together? And let's do it safely. And unfortunately, they didn't want to talk about that either. So, I was left alone, falling apart, fearing for my life, and begging to go back to a job to feed my kids that I knew wasn't going to keep me safe. How do you live like that? How do you live like that and not continue to fall apart? I
understand nursing's the only thing you've done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's an important career for you, something you want to stay in. I understand this has turned into litigated action.
Yes.
So you can't say the name of the employer.
That's correct.
I understand because of this you're not able to maintain work in the same kind of field.
So there's a couple of reasons. I mean, right now, also trying to work towards repairing the symptoms of the PTSD and getting myself back on track. But because I cannot work in community care, there's a lot of triggers there as well with my PTSD. The only other option is facility. And one of the problems with facility is vaccinations.
Facility being hospitals.
Hospital, long-term care.
Long-term care. Okay. Vaccinations. Okay.
Yeah. The next big one.
Let's go there. What's been your experience thus far with the vaccination process in this province?
Yeah, so not to start a co-vax, no-vax divide or anything like that, because my situation is quite a bit different, and I hate being pegged in the same spot as, that. But I have a lot of medical conditions. I've been through a lot, and one of those medical conditions, which I'm still waiting for an internist to pinpoint and pull apart at the microbiology level to figure out what's wrong with me, is I have allergic reactions to nothing. Spontaneously. So I have some triggers, environmental triggers, some food triggers, things like that, but as well as medications, and that includes vaccinations. So, it started more systemic reactions. Every now and then I would get something out of nowhere, up to and including anaphylaxis, which sucks. If you don't know what that is, it's life-threatening. It's going to kill you. Eventually your throat closes down. You stop breathing. So as a nurse, again, loving my job, I knew getting into nursing that you have to have vaccinations. Your vaccinations have to be up to date. You have to check for your immunities. I'm no stranger to that. So when the pandemic first hit and we're out there with no PPE, because community doesn't get that either. It all gets pumped out to LTC and facilities, right? And we're reusing PPE, and we're trying our very best to be, as aseptic as we possibly can, going house to house to house to house, putting on and taking off. We were good enough then, and then the vaccination hit, and they said, okay, like science says, you have to get this vaccine, this COVID vaccine, to keep working. So my first thought is, I've had to get a ton of vaccines for nursing as it is. Line up, get her done, So I got my first vaccination, and I responded with an anaphylactic reaction immediately. So I was treated with, Epi and Benadryl for that. Recovered nicely. Clearly, I'm still here. And then I went about my merry way because I need to get back to work. I did what I had to do. Again, I keep falling back on this. I have kids to feed, but I do, and that's what it comes down to. And then a couple of months after that, I was due for my tetanus booster. So I went to my family doctor for my tetanus booster, and I had a severe allergic reaction to that as well. He was afraid to give me full dose IM Benadryl when I was having my allergic reaction. So I was approaching anaphylactic with a throat closing, but I could still breathe because I had reacted. So he was afraid to give me another needle that was going to cause me to react. But what do you do? Because otherwise I'm going to progress, right? So at that point, my doctor had said, no more vaccinations. We need to get you sent off to immunology, put in a requisition to immunologist. And again, I went back out into our pandemic world and continued working as a nurse. And then our second vaccination became mandatory. So now I'm stuck in a position where I've been told no more vaccinations, not even the flu shot, until I'm assessed by immunology, because these things are trying to kill me. In the meantime, my side effects were getting a lot worse. So my spontaneous allergic reactions were more frequent. They were more severe. Even as a stress response, I was becoming full-blown head-to-toe with hives, allergic reactions. But the mandate is what the mandate is. So I begged my employer. I provided them with a GP exemption, saying I am waiting for immunology. Here's the reactions that I've suffered previously. I'm not just not doing it to not do it. And we had a cutoff date. So October 15th to get your second vax or lose your job by the 31st. So I went back to my GP and I begged, because I still had not heard from immunology. And he pushed harder to try to get me in with immunology faster. So immunology gave me an intake date of December. But my job last date was October 15th, and my employer wouldn't wait. So now they're saying we can't guarantee you a job, we can't guarantee you hours, and I have a decision to make because I'm a single mom with 3 kids that I need to support on my own. I have bills to pay, I have mouths to feed, and I rely on not just my income but my overtime to do that. And so you're stuck in this position of, trying to have meetings, trying to get them to wait. And again, they're not supporting the fact that you have a medical condition, and your doctor has agreed that you shouldn't be doing these things. They're just putting their foot down because their policy states an immunologist must exempt you, or you lose your job. So on October 13th, I had my will done. I made sure my life insurance was in order. Sorry, it gets me upset every time. And I made a video because now I'm stuck in a position of risking my life so that I can work to feed my kids, or losing my job and not being able to feed my kids. And I wanted to make sure I was prepared for that. So, you start calling around to people to see who's going to take them, who's going to look after them for you, just in case you do die. Hoping that you don't die so you can keep working, because that's the end goal, right? And sorry. So I got everything in order, and I let people know where my will was and all of these things. I put a video out letting people know this is what I was doing, and I went and got my second shot. And so with my second shot, I had anaphylactic reaction immediately. First dose of epi, nothing. Second dose of epi, started to relieve some of the symptoms, but still nothing. So ambulance came and hooked me up to Benadryl, took me to the hospital. And so you're explaining to the ambulance, the paramedics, why you've done this stupid thing, And when you get there, after repeated, so now I've had 2 anaphylactic reactions, they shove you in a corner by yourself so you can just have more anaphylactic reactions and die while you're waiting to be seen. So I went home, and over the next 2 days I had 3 more, so I had 5 anaphylactic reactions over 3 days. I lost my vision for a day going down my stairs, and so the side effects of that continue to be that sometimes my vision will come in and out. It has likely a side effect of how much epinephrine I had to have. And my allergic responses to things have gotten even worse. So I had to have a TB test to try to get another job. And my entire body was in hives. It was incredible, but no TB, so that's good. And anyway, so that brings me to now. So because I have PTSD and I can't go back to community where you only require 2 vaccinations, facilities require 3. So now I spent a few days going clinic to pharmacy, begging somebody to vaccinate me, to risk my life, to get another vaccination so I can get a job. Because WSIB can't pay you forever. The expectation is that you build skills to go back to work, and you can't really see how your PTSD is going to respond to an environment until you're there. So the idea is to get your coping strategies up enough to work. But in order to work, I have to, once again, risk my life with a vaccine so I can do that. So nobody will vaccinate me. Every place that I go, I fail. It's called a screener. So I fail it because of my reactions, my previous reactions, as well as my other allergic reactions. So nobody will do it. So they said I should get a controlled setting. All of this time, immunology has still not picked me up. So I'm waiting because my first immunologist said I was far too complicated. So he referred me to an internist immunologist at a bigger hospital. And they haven't picked up my referral yet because I'm in line with the no-vaxxers also. All of us are in the same line. So I'm, potentially dying to work in line with people who, for whatever reason, and I don't care because everybody has a choice, not getting their vaccinations. And it would be nice if I could just get that frickin' exemption because I don't want to die. I don't want to die to be a nurse. I'm a nurse. I love my job. We were good enough when we had no PPE to be thrown into these places and look after these people when nobody even knew how bad COVID was. And then as COVID was killing people, we were still good enough to go in there, not vaccinated, not even educated. They were pulling people from behind desks and throwing them into this world of COVID virus house to house to do all of these things. And it was fine. But now I mean, our numbers are, COVID funding is dropping. Like they don't even have studies on passing on this boosters to next boosters and how much it's going to support you. People are getting 5 and 6 shots and still getting COVID. I just want to not die and keep working. And me, with all of my allergic reactions, being in community care, subjected to all of these things, I never got COVID once. So why can't I put on my gloves and my mask and my gown that were good enough before and go do the job that I love? Why do I have to go and potentially die so I can feed my kids? What's the difference? So that's where I am. For a job that I might not be able to get anyway, because they want management reference and I can't do that either since I'm suing them. So...
Is there anything we can do to help you?
I think people need to be better informed when they're advocating for, things like advancement of science. And that's one of the things that irritates me through all of this. And I 100% support people who do not want to be vaccinated. That's your body, that's your choice. I've been pushed into a position where I don't really have a choice because this is the only job and profession that I know. But don't just not do it or do it because somebody told you to not do it or do it. You're out there raising your flags and shouting and honking your horns and crying, poor me. And if somebody actually asked you, what is the reason you want to get vaccinated, or what is the reason you don't? You have no evidence to back that up because you're caught up in the hype. And then there's people like me who are risking our lives and almost dying because we don't have a choice. That kills me. Be informed. Inform yourself. Make a decision because you're informed about that decision, not because everybody else is doing it. That's the way to help. That's the way to help the world, and leave people to their choices. I'm one of the things, and I'll tell you, that's been really hard for me during all of this is one of my very close friends who's also a nurse who made the decision to not vaccinate, which is fine. And so when I was explaining my situation about having to put my life at risk to get this vaccination, they fired about, it's poison and it's toxic and it's just, don't do this to yourself and all of these things. But what they're not appreciating, they're not taking a step back, and we had this conversation, is you're not seeing the bigger picture of my life here. I am well aware of what the previous vaccinations did to me, which is why I have a will. That's why I'm terrified. But my life circumstances says, if I don't risk my life, I don't feed my kids and I lose my home. It's not about COVID anymore. It's about being able to work. And the law and the government, very slowly at this snail's pace, they're changing their regulations and their mandates depending on where you walk and what door you open. Sit at a table and make up your mind and let us do our freaking jobs. I want to save people. I want to not die to save people.
Have you found other people with your same kind of experience?
So in my circle, I have not. In my entire organization where I was working, the only divide that we had was personal choice divide with the COVAX and the NOVAX. I am the only person in my circle who has suffered the reaction that I have. However, I did participate in a lot of, I forget what they're called, when we were trying to fight the vaccination policies for people who wanted to continue to work. I can't remember the word for it when they get together. Anyway, in that setting, there was a lot of strangers from other areas who were in a similar position that I was, as well as people who, they hadn't had their vaccination at all, but they did have a lot of other health conditions that made things terrifying for them. And so the thought of having all of these other health conditions, and the government is saying that's why you should, but they know the treatments for their current health conditions are making them sicker and sicker and sicker, and they're afraid to add one more. And then, the outside outside world still looks at them like they're a terrible person because they don't want to take the shot. And it's like, they're just as much afraid of losing their life as I am. Why are you going to add more when we're still waiting for more information?
How are they contending with it?
Yeah, so in these groups, I mean, after getting to the point where we were formulating how to approach our employers to not get the vaccinations and what routes we wanted to take and things like that, I have absolutely no idea what they've done with themselves. I hope to God that they were able to get in with immunology as well. Because unfortunately, in our stretched healthcare system where everybody's waiting 2 years to see a specialist, now we're waiting 4, just because we want to save our lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you have suggestions, comments, we want to hear from you. You can reach us at the comment section below, I can say that. Or you can reach us through our Spaulding Canada website, spauldingcanada.ca. So I know this is time dated sometime in March of 2023. And so things are changing quickly in your life. I know you're working on the 3rd jab. We'll find out what happens there. Hopefully you'll live.
Yeah.
We'll find some solution for you. And I'm all ears because I'm just the host. I don't have the answers. So we do want to hear from you if you have some thoughts. We'll get this video out there as soon as we can. Are there any closing thoughts, wisdoms, statements, things you'd like to share with the audience?
I think really you just need to hang in there. At the end of the day, that's all that you can do. There's so many things that are outside of our control. And one of the biggest things that I've learned through all of this, not just, my PTSD and the COVAX situation, but also my personal life situation, being a single mother. There are so many things that are not in your control, and you can't let that completely destroy you. There is another way. You just have to find that way. And it can be cloudy, but...
And you've done that before.
I've done it so many times. And this is just another challenge and another opportunity, although I hate that word right now because I'm still in the resentment period of my resilience. But it is a challenge, and it's an opportunity to find the next best thing, and something will come. And the best part about the resiliency that I resent is when I come out on top, it's going to be because of me. So.
Excellent.
That's it.
Okay. We're not done yet. There's more to come. Something more on the brighter, shinier side of things. How about we do that? So next episode, we're going to do something really cool. Thank you, Christene, for joining us. Christene Bell. And we'll see you next time on a Spaulding Feature.